So, welcome everyone. I'm Michelle from Eastern Washington and Northern Idaho region of Jasna, and we're going to be talking about the wonderful Northanger Abbey today. So, we had some kind of informal discussion questions that, to kind of get the ball rolling. Any Anybody want to start in terms of thinking about, what do you like about the book? What do you how much do you like Henry Tilney? How much do you like Catherine Morland? Um, yeah, thoughts?
Well, I like them both. And I had heard or seen some people saying, well, that Henry was just more flattered or felt that he needed to make up for his father at the end. But as I went through this time, I made sure to look, and from the first, he's pays a lot of attention to her when they first meet, and I looked at things he said to her all along, and except for his scolding that one time, he's always very positive towards her. And like when she says, "Oh, maybe I should go home after 4 weeks. I've stayed too long." He's right with it in saying, "Oh, you stay longer." And some other thing, he kind of hints that somebody that can learn to love a hydrangea can learn to love people very easily or something. And he just gives hints all along. So I think he really does like, I think being 25, he's probably met some of these women of the world, and he's kind of loves that innocence and charm.
Yeah, you kind of wonder like what the social life was for Eleanor and Henry, um, especially um, you know, when they're in Northanger Abbey, when they're home. Um,
Well, and with
with that father.
yeah, with Henry's older brother being so, which Henry and Eleanor obviously know what their older brother is like. I think Henry being a clergyman would be really drawn to Catherine's innocence and naivete and that, like you said, she's not a woman of the world. And he can, I and I mean this in a good way, I think it appeals to him to be able to mold her into the perfect wife. Um, not to uh create someone that she's not, but to help her become a good clergyman's wife without losing that innocence and naivete. Well, he helps teach her more about the world in a safe way. Like reading novels is great, reading novels is good, but novels are not real life. And you have to kind of,
yeah. I think her being a clergyman's daughter is also probably like something that is, in her favor that she kind of knows the world of what being a clergyman is all about. Um,
Mhm.
like, could you imagine Isabella as as the clergyman's wife? She'd be another Mrs. Elton.
Yeah. Whereas Catherine would be very compassionate to all of the parishioners. She would be great, going around and, giving aid to the poor and the sick and being that generous, loving, compassionate person.
How about Catherine herself? We talked kind of a lot about Henry. does like her process of development over the course of the novel, does that feel um like emotionally real? I know like there's lots of times when I read it and I like have this vicarious cringing of like when she does things that she's ashamed of or feels mortified about, and I'm like innerly cringing, just like at Box Hill when Emma insults Mrs. Bates, and Miss Bates, I mean.
I
Yeah,
feel like
how does that feel like a real connection for you with Catherine?
she does grow, but not as much as we would hope she would. I think that what we see is her potential, that she's had her eyes opened, that maybe she should listen to Henry and maybe she should grow up a little more. And I think there's the potential for more growth in the future. I think that she's still pretty raw.
Probably especially in the sense of like social, you know, like being at Bath and sort of understanding that people people can be deceptive and people are not always how they portray themselves, and that feels like that's going to be more of a ongoing
being
development for her.
right, being able to read people and understand them and see through their deceptions. I think I always get a laugh out of uh Henry's sister. What's her name?
Eleanor.
Eleanor, thank you. Eleanor telling Catherine, when Catherine says, I basically like, I wish I'd never met Isabella. And and Eleanor says, don't worry, pretty soon it'll feel that way. You'll, you know, you'll forget about that, and that'll just be, something in the past. She knows that Catherine will just, she's got that innocence of mind that she can just put all of that bad stuff in the past and forget about it.
I was going to say, this is my first time reading the book. I've read the other ones, but my first, and it got mixed reviews when I was looking it up. But what I was thinking about her, yes, she is young, but curious. You ever hear curiosity killed the cat? Well, she's very curious and very imaginative thoughts, right? So like when she was opening up the chest in the room, and then she was going to go see the mom's room, and she was making up a thing that maybe the dad did something untoward. And I was just thinking about probably living at that time frame. You had to create your own excitement. I mean, it's not like how we have so many stimuluses coming out us, but I think she just goes with that. If you were older, you would probably reason a little bit more that that's probably not going to, right. Yeah, she read, that's right, Elsie. She read so many novels that fed that the Gothic, theme, that, mystery. So I thought that was interesting. And then I was thinking this, when her brother James got engaged to Isabella, his dowry was only going to be 400, or his yearly salary 400. And then towards the end of this, one of the reasons the captain didn't want, her to get married to his son was because of the money, right? And then it looks like she got 3,000. I was like, well, that's interesting. She's going to go to the marriage with $3,000 of dowry, and the other guy was only going to get 400 salary. Did you guys notice that in there?
But it was different because his was lifelong, 400 every single year.
Well, that's true,
She
right?
got 3,000 in one lump, which, if it was invested, it would be, maybe 300 pounds a year.
I think 150. They usually did like
150.
Oh,
5%.
I got it. So 150.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't remember what the percentage was.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, so that was a
150
one-time
pounds.
payoff essence.
Right, right. That was worth a lot less than the
Yeah,
living.
we're never 100% clear what Henry's annual income is,
Yeah.
but they sort of made it sound like it's you know, it's good enough to live on, but not super high. So
People always live a long time when there's an annuity to be paid.
Right.
I liked Catherine. I think I identified with her because I can remember being that young. And I didn't find it as cringeworthy, maybe as you said, Michelle, except for the part about the trunk, opening up the trunk in her room and sort of daydreaming when she should have been prompt. Um, but she didn't really know the general's true colors at that time, and somebody maybe should have briefed her on that. But you don't
yeah,
want to discourage her.
it seemed like
Yeah.
his kids, you know, Eleanor and Henry, I think, knew his maybe true personality, but they couldn't like explain it to Catherine. And so there was sort of that mystery. Like it felt like both Henry and Eleanor knew that General Tilney was someone who really cared about money. And so, you know, like they were kind of like not sure why he wanted Catherine to be their friend. Um, and you know, they knew that he was greedy and not a nice guy. But it also seemed like maybe Henry didn't realize just how awful the general could actually be until he saw how he treated Catherine at the end.
Although I still rereading the book, I'm so used to watching the film. Um, and rereading the book, I felt like the general wasn't as awful as he was portrayed in the film. I feel like in the film, they really made him just evil. And in the book, I felt more like, well, he's a concerned father trying to get the best marriages for his kids. That was the way things were at that time, you know, trying to make sure they didn't marry below their status or whatever. But he didn't, other than kicking Catherine out in the middle of the night, um, which did he kick her out in the middle of the night in the book?
Well,
No,
he
it was
he
in the
made her
morning.
go at 7 in the
It was
morning,
in the
but
morning.
the
See,
important part was she didn't go with any attendant.
right.
So
But
so that was
they made
dangerous
it
for
so
a
much
young
worse.
woman.
That's what I'm saying. In the movie, they made it so much worse, kicked her out in the middle of the night. And in the book, it was 7 in the morning. She was traveling during the daytime. It wasn't, as bad.
But it is dangerous, I think, for a young woman,
Mhm.
in the sense of, you know, she'd have to go to posting houses and have to deal with post boys. So,
That's true.
you know, so nothing bad happened to her, but something could have happened.
I'm not saying the general was a nice guy. I'm just saying they made him even worse in the movie
Yeah.
version. And when you read the book, you're like, oh, well, okay, it wasn't quite as bad as all that.
I feel like a lot of times the
Well, our
movies
movies
have
have
to
to
like
go.
play up something
Yes.
to make
Yeah.
Right.
things that there's nuance that like a contemporary reader would know, oh, what he did was really dangerous for Catherine. But
Yeah,
like, you know, we wouldn't necessarily know that, you know, if
that's
you're
a
just
good
going to
point.
the movie that,
Right. Exactly. A contemporary reader would have read that and said, this is really, really bad. And us watching the movie, if they had said it in the morning, we would be like, oh, yeah, So middle of the night gave us that feeling of, oh, that's really bad. That's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way. Thank you.
Plus, if it was in the winter, it was in the middle of the night. Just kidding, because of where Britain is located on the globe. It doesn't get dark till 8 or 9 in the southern part of England. So
Right.
I mean light in the morning until 8 or 9. And anyway, Scotland would be worse, or northern England.
That was sort of one of my questions about, the movie is like how once you've seen the movie, can you not, can you imagine Henry and Catherine as anyone other than JJ and Felicity?
JJ Field is Henry Tilney, just like Colin Firth is Darcy.
I feel like especially because like Henry of all of the heroes is probably the funniest and the person who smiles the most.
Yeah.
And so I feel like because JJ does that in the movie so much that it makes it, I think it makes sort of like the defining role.
Mhm. It's easy to get attached to him.
Yeah.
Have this is not related to Northanger Abbey, but it is related to JJ Field. Have any of you seen Austin Land,
Yeah.
where he plays the Darcy character,
Yeah.
and his name is again Henry?
I was like, I read the book and then I was reading I think an interview with Shannon Hale, who's the author,
Mhm.
and she was saying how she and the movie director or someone, both women were meeting with JJ Field, and they were both like little schoolgirls because they were so excited that he was Henry Tilney. And I just thought that was the cutest story.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
there's a question. What do you think of Henry's style of teaching? You ready to move on to?
Yeah. Some people really feel he's too um preachy or didactic instead of I don't know. Like I think there's several times where he asks her questions and tries to get her to figure out the answer instead of him saying, this is what you should think. Um, so to me, it seemed like he's trying to teach her how to kind of think about things and make decisions in social settings.
How to form her own opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, maybe it's the man in the marriage or the woman, they take on a role of teacher if they're in an area of their expertise. And it's just, I mean, I'm a homeschool mom, so I'm even worse than most people. For myself, you find somebody who has a big hole in their knowledge, and you can't help but want to pull them along so that you can actually discuss it.
Mhm.
You are a teacher, aren't you, Michelle?
I'm sorry, what?
You are a teacher, so tell me what you think.
No, I actually was a therapist. That I'm retired now, but that was my old job.
Listener.
Um, what I like is Catherine actually will stand up to Henry, though. Like when they were doing the walk at Beach and Cliff, and Henry kind of makes fun of her for using the word torment about about reading, and you know, she tells him, you know, like, yeah, my mother has to, or torment instead of instruct for uh,
Oh.
the historians when they write history books. And, you know, she says, hey, my experience is when little kids are learning to read, it's torture. Um, so I like that she stands up to him and argues with him and doesn't always like say whatever Henry says is correct.
Mhm.
It's it's the dialogue form of teaching. But thinking, oh, never mind. It slipped my mind.
Has anyone ever read any of the Gothic novels that they talk about? The Anne Radcliffe? Yeah, Diana, which have you read?
I read The Mysteries of Adolfo. It was horrible. It was just so melodramatic. I mean, you could see her just doing this all the time and just screaming. I really don't remember a lot of the story. There was just a lot of screaming, a lot of, and just, you know, and nothing. I don't remember that anything horrible really happened other than a kidnapping, but it was just a lots of just, you know, oh, no one knows about my nerves, you know.
I have the Cambridge edition of Northanger Abbey, and they have a synopsis at the end of all of Anne Radcliffe's novels that were sort of incorporated into. So when Henry Tilney is kind of trying to scare Catherine on the ride to Northanger Abbey, he's taking pieces from different of Anne Radcliffe's novels.
Oh,
And they're all like crazy, crazy plots. Like, you know,
what was that version of your book again?
oh, so it's the Cambridge edition.
Cambridge.
And I think, you know, you could get it at janeaustenbooks.net, or it's really good at like doing annotations that kind of tell you, like, you know, this little thing that Henry's saying is actually a play on Romance of the Forest, or
And I have read that and I did like it. I thought Romance of the Forest was a really nice book.
okay, that was I mean, they all have like these crazy plots of people who, you know, someone's the real heir and someone else has taken their property, and it's just crazy. um I feel like you can't fully appreciate what Jane Austen did unless you've read like the novels that came right before her, because when you read them, it's like, to me, it's like night and day. That, you know, she like just didn't include extra junk.
Right, right.
um
Like I said, the Mysteries of Adolfo was just so over the top melodramatic. It was like one of those old 1920s, you know, the villain like this and the hero like this, you know, and just over the top. And then you get to Jane Austen, it's like, oh, this is just real life. And this is how everybody lives, and nothing crazy and
Yes, I was so fortunate to be living in England when the 1987 version came out because I had a friend who did her A levels, which is like a high school major in Jane Austen. And so all through that movie, and I really was very unfamiliar with most of Austen's works. I'd read Persuasion maybe and Pride and Prejudice, but Northanger Abbey is something else. It's what I would think. I hesitate to say this, but it's like the 2005 version of Pride and Prejudice compared to the 1995. It's just all um, it's making fun of the dramatic, the mysterious, the over the top. It's the mad wife in the attic kind of thing. And my friend was able to explain all that to me as we watched it. And it was so delightful because I don't know that I would have picked up on all that without reading, a good commentary or something. So I was really thankful.
Have you guys read
Can you
the
imagine getting to do your A levels in Jane Austen?
Have you guys read the, I'm looking this up, Jane's Austen's Bookshelf by Romney?
Not
It goes,
yet.
oh, it's very, very good. And it goes through all of the different authors that she was potentially influenced by. So I highly recommend that. Maybe it's about like 6 different authors in there, but they do discuss how some of the plot lines she was influenced by the other writers.
Nice.
Even so the other three that Jane Austen mentions when she's doing the defense of the novel. So one of them is Belinda by Maria Edgeworth, and then the other two are by Fanny Burney,
Mhm.
and I think she mentions Camilla, and I can't remember the other one, but they're two Fanny Burney books. And even those, when you read them, they're not gothic, they're more novels of manners, but they have crazy, crazy plot lines. I mean, in Belinda, there's someone who like raises this poor woman like without seeing any men except for himself.
Oh,
And I mean, like creepy, creepy, creepy. Um,
I
and
read
again,
Camilla,
like
but it's
you
been a
read them
while.
and you're like, how did Jane Austen like she picks stuff from them, but she doesn't pick the crazy stuff. Yeah, that's a good comment. That it really feels like in Northanger Abbey, like she's sort of got a bone to pick with she wants to sort of show like what a novel can do, and she wants to demonstrate that like you can talk about sort of normal everyday things in a way that's interesting and engaging and informative. Um, so some people talk about that it feels like there's two halves of the novel and that they're kind of um, there's like the half that's sort of the parody of the Gothic, and then there's the half that's sort of like, let's show you what a novel really could be if we just, kind of look at everyday life. And some people feel like the two parts don't really go together, or that not um, they're not well integrated.
Hmm.
Um,
I disagree. I think that's why we all love the book is because they are well integrated. I I feel like the humor comes through from the mocking of the Gothic, and then you see kind of how they how she tempers it with the real life story. And I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I think they're well integrated.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that sometimes I think people overthink things or something and don't just sit down and enjoy. That's what novels are for enjoyment, to enjoy them. And to me, that the bit about the novels was just like the world of the mind versus what's really happening, maybe, but they go together because we all have a world of the mind and a world of reality.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's fun to let your imagination run wild within the scope of reading a book. That's reading a novel is when you can let your imagination go crazy. You just have to be sure not to carry that over into your real life and let your imagination go crazy in real life.
Or think that everyone's going to find a Mr. Darcy.
Yeah.
One of the things I think about Henry, I sort of see like a connection between Henry Tilney and Elizabeth Bennet, that they're both pretty witty, but they're also like a little bit, there's a potential for them to be emotionally disengaged. And I feel like what Catherine brings to the equation for Henry is sort of that emotional engagement, that emotional connection. Because like I think in the beginning, he's sort of like he's just trying to entertain her and kind of be this witty person, but maybe not connecting too much with her in the beginning, and then I think over time he begins to connect more.
Well, it's like
Anyone else see him as similar to Elizabeth and sort of that wittiness?
definitely. And uh I think that Jane actually says towards the end of the book that his love for Catherine started out as just, like you said, funniness and trying to entertain her. It was the fact that she loved him that drew him to her. Um, the, so it was her emotional connection that created his emotional connection.
Yeah.
And I think there could be a case for Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy to say the same thing, because he's the one who really knew about the emotional connection long before Elizabeth did.
Yeah. And it did, there's sort of that similar, hers being built on gratitude, that
Right.
that he loved her and was willing to forgive her for her.
Family.
Well, and yeah, the way that she's sort of took him to task all the time.
Right.
Um, so has anyone here read the Claudia Gray's Jonathan Tilney and um, Julia Juliet Tildy, Jonathan
Yes, the
Darcy and
mysteries.
Juliet Tildy's, is it Juliet or Julia? Juliet?
Julia.
Julia. So
Yeah.
so they're the kids of Elizabeth and Fitzwilliam Darcy and Catherine and Henry Tilney, and they solve mysteries. So it's maybe like set up maybe as more of a young adult thing, but they're fun.
Yeah.
And so what what Claudia Gray has done is she made Catherine Tilney as an adult become an author. And didn't really say maybe too much about what kind of book she writes, but she's a published author. And anyway, I just think it's fun because there's sort of this like this second life of the descendants of the Darcy marriage and the Tilney marriage, and then you get to see different people from the other novels. It's a fun series.
It is very fun.
The first one is The Murder of Mr. Wickham, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the second one is The Late Mrs. Willoughby. So different in the different books, there's sort of different novel characters are brought in.
Oh, fun.
There's one with the Mansfield Park people.
The Rushford, something about Rushford.
Yeah, the
Rushworth.
Rushworth plot.
In the title. Yeah, Rushford's plot's the title.
Rushworth family plot.
Oh,
Yeah.
And the other one's
The Fatal
of
at Netherfield Park.
Yeah.
Fatal Events at Netherfield Park, maybe.
No, it's got the title of Mrs. What's her face, the rich lady in it.
Oh, the
Darcy
of Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
That's it. That's it.
I was
Yeah, they're
thinking
fun.
that, isn't it a shame that her book wasn't made available to the public for all those years and just lay dormant until she bought it and had it published herself? Because I think that maybe it's not a shame, maybe it's a great boon to Jane herself, Jane Austen, because when her books finally came out, the reading public was ready for something like that and hungry for some kind of, I don't know what it's called, indirect discourse or something. Whereas the other things were mostly letters written between two characters. A lot of the female writing was epistolary or boring or over the top. So anyway, I just think that her book lying dormant as it did maybe gave her her potential audience time to develop, so that when her real books came out, they were ready, and she kind of hit the celebrity parade pretty early, even though they didn't know who she was. She didn't want celebrityship, I hasten to add.
Yeah. I wonder if part of that was especially because of like being in a clergy family, if part of, that was part of it. I mean, her brother Henry would tell everyone, and so he's the reason that she ended up getting connected with the Prince Regent's librarian, and having Emma dedicated to the Prince Regent, because I think one of Henry's doctors was also the Prince Regent's doctor, and that's how they ended up knowing that she was the author. That at least the Prince Regent had good taste in novels.
yeah.
He may have been an awful person, but he had good taste in novels. How about Isabella and John Thorpe? Like, are they like so bad? Like, so like Mrs. Elton is so bad, but every time she shows up, I just crack up, and I just love to hear her talk. So, but I kind of feel like with the Thorpes, they're kind of like they're
kind of
they're
threatening.
not so
honestly.
bad, they're good. They're just
Like they're
bad.
despicable.
Yes.
They're kind
Yeah.
of threatening.
And there's a
They're
there's a
creepy.
sinister quality to them
Right.
that Mrs. Elton doesn't have. It's proud, disagreeable.
Right. Mrs. Elton is self-centered and snobbish, but she's not trying to hurt anybody or ruin anybody's reputation. Whereas John Thorpe, he's trying to like secretly trick Catherine into marrying him and trying to, knowingly take her out in the carriage, and uh, running wild all over the countryside with her when she, making her break promises and stuff. And he is just so horrible to me. I cannot find anything to like about that character. He's just
Yeah, and I think part of that is sort of the gothic tropes that Austen's playing with because,
Mhm.
like in the gothic novels and also in the novels of manners, the the heroine would often like have, an abduction.
Right.
Like
And
Harriet Byron was abducted by someone in Sir Charles Grandison, and Sir Charles, rescues her. Um, so
yeah, so it does very much play into that where John Thorpe abducts Catherine, just for a day, but still it's that.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I can understand the reason for his character. I just don't like him
yeah. I, he,
at all.
he's
He makes me angry.
and the and I guess what I like is that Catherine pretty quickly sees through him and how awful he is. Um, and I wonder, like why does it take her so long to see through Isabella? That she like begins to think, something's not right with her. Why is she flirting with Captain Tilney? Um, but it takes her a long time to be able to finally like decide, oh, she is bad news.
I
Um,
think Isabella is a little more pleasant to start with and friendly and kind and stuff, where John is obnoxious from the very beginning.
Exactly. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess she does, pretend to love Catherine.
She ingratiates herself to Catherine. And I think when Catherine, the first clue that Catherine has where she starts to see through it is when Isabella complains about the size of uh, James's living and how long they'll have to wait to get married.
Yeah,
And that's when she starts to see, when Isabella's mother is saying, well, I'm sure that if your father could do more, he would have, kind of being all snobby about it. And she's like, hey, he's doing the best he can. And yeah.
yeah. So yeah, 400, they definitely would not have been able to have a carriage. And Henry has his curricle, so he definitely has, enough income to support horses. So
I want to make another comment about John Thorpe. I always thought that if I were an English professor, which I'm not, but I would have my students write a modern guy with a car being the same way about his car as he was with his horses. I think a clever student could really do a lot with that. I could just see a guy bragging about his car and how fast it was and how he got a good bargain on it. And in fact, I've kind of run into a few that were quite braggy about themselves. So that makes sense to me.
Absolutely. I think John Thorpe translates to the 21st century. Just Jane was ahead of her time in describing John Thorpe, I think.
I can't remember who it was, but there's some male critic who was maybe like in the early 1900s talking about the John Thorpe character and saying you can still find those people at Oxford. And I don't remember which critic it was, but this notion that like Jane just nailed a type of man, a rattle.
Yes, a rattle. Now, I was going to ask, Henry, besides his living, didn't he inherit some money from his mother? I think
Yeah.
that he and Isabella, I mean, not Isabella, he and Eleanor each had an inheritance from their mother that was separate from what their father would have given.
Yeah, I think it wasn't 100% clear if he already had it or if he would have it once his father was dead. But it did seem like he definitely had independent money that he could live when he was estranged from his father for the
Mhm.
year before he got the okay to marry Catherine.
Right.
I wonder how big brother to Catherine, was it James? How he fell into being friends with Thorpe. Anyway, he spent Christmas with them. He spent some time with John Thorpe.
It seems
Well, they were
like,
school friends.
and
They
yeah,
were friends at school.
and he thought he was rich. Thorpe thought James Moreland was rich. So I think that's why he cultivated the friendship, trying to think about him for his sister. Gullible and, rich in Thorpe's mind. So at the end, Henry is able to stand up to his father and not give up Catherine when he's told to. And I feel like that I wonder if it hadn't been for Catherine, if he ever would have stood up to his father. I mean, that the expectation at that time is that children obey their parents, no matter what.
Yeah, he probably that is probably the big influence that Catherine had on him, was to stand up to his father, because until she came along, there was no reason for him to stand up to his father. There was no need.
Yeah. And yet it to me, it feels like developmentally he had to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. It's like it seems like when he is criticizing Catherine for thinking his father killed his mother, it seems like he maybe is not fully aware of how bad his father really is or could be. Um, and he only realizes that, I think, after he sees how he's treated Catherine.
It's
That,
been fun listening to all of you. I have to stop for gas now. I'm at the
okay.
border of Arizona and California.
Bye, Mom.
Bye, Diana. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye. I'm going to leave this connected just in case you're still talking when I'm through getting my gas.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Mom's always on a road trip. Elsie describes John Thorpe as Heathcliff. I totally agree. Nothing redeemable about Heathcliff.
I just feel like the Brontes and Jane Austen are just two different worldviews. And like the Brontes, I think just like to me, they seem much more derived from the Gothic
Mhm. Oh, definitely.
than Jane
Yeah.
Austen is.
Yeah.
And
But they, I don't know, one inspired the other to go even farther Gothic, more Gothic, I think. But they were both daughters of a clergyman, which is kind of an interesting thought.
Yeah.
However, the forbidding world of Yorkshire and the growing up in a cemetery and just in the moorland, it seems like they're too much against those Brontes and their brother's alcoholism.
Yeah.
So much tragedy there. Jane Austen's father died, but she was already mature, I think, when that happened. Whereas the Bronte mother died and the children were quite young, I think.
I keep doing experiments of like trying to reread the Brontes and like them better. But I Wuthering Heights, I just cannot stand.
Mhm. Nope. I read it once. I will never read it again. I do love Jane Eyre, which actually literally has a woman locked away in the tower. I mean, you can't get more gothic than that, but I still love Jane Eyre.
Have you read Villette, the other so that's the other Charlotte Bronte novel that is supposed to have some autobiographical components.
I haven't read anything else other than
Okay.
Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre.
I read Villette and some others, but I cannot remember them, so I can't discuss them. I do read them, and I think I thought they were okay, but I don't remember them. I do like Jane Eyre, even though it is Gothic.
I like Jane Eyre. I don't like Rochester.
Oh,
So it's like, yeah, keeping your wife, even if she's crazy, and then trying to marry someone else, not a good plan.
Well, he had the option of putting her in a madhouse, which was a terrible place, probably at that time. So some people even argue that he was being compassionate.
right.
And
He
you
was
saw
doing the best
how
he could for her.
saw how kindly he treated her when she had her breakdowns. He would try to calm her, but not
Let
hurt
me get out.
Mom, your microphone is on.
I'm trying to get out of this parking place in the gas station. This woman drove right in front of me.
Oh,
Sorry about that. Facing me, not trying to cut in, facing me, so I couldn't get out.
I read Wuthering Heights twice just because I thought, well, maybe I haven't given it a fair chance, Diana. So that's what I've done. But how about Anne Bronte? Did anybody read The Tenant of Wildfell Hall? I know that's not our scene right now, but
I had to read
that's
it.
pretty exciting.
Yeah, I read that one. That was
I had to
okay.
read it for
It just
something. Yeah, I
wasn't,
thought
it was okay.
she was hiding from her stalker.
what is Wide Sargasso Sea?
It's
Elsie?
how the woman became the woman in the attic.
Oh,
It's the woman's
right.
version of how she became the attic liver.
So it's
oh,
like the shadow story
Yeah,
of Jane Eyre.
okay.
yeah. Been wanting to read it. It's like one of the first fan fictions, I guess you could say. It's pretty old. It's been around
Oh,
for a long time.
oh, wow.
Getting back to this Northanger Abbey at the very end, uh, just like with Isabella, uh, Henry and Catherine are since she's so young, they're supposed to have a long engagement and wait to get married, and I thought that was very interesting to me.
I didn't remember that.
Well,
Yeah.
they sort of end up having to wait a year until the general says that they can get married. And so, when she meets, they're 17, and I really think Jane Austen has this like mental deadline of you can't get married before you're 18. um so so to me that felt like, Catherine, it was a year for her to maybe learn how to be a housekeeper also, or how to run a house. And they don't really talk about that because that's not important in the storyline, but for me it seemed like, that they have this year to sort of get to know each other better through letters, and Catherine sort of learns a little bit
Maturing.
more about
Yeah.
how to run a house. And
Yeah.
what about the question of sort of this, whether there are evil characters, whether the general is evil in the sense of, I think at one point, Catherine's thinking about, after she sort of got her scolding by Henry, that, well, there's no evil people in England, and everybody's, there's no pure good or pure evil. Everybody's got a mixture of qualities. But yeah, I kind of wonder, like, do we as readers, do we see the general as evil in that sort of sense of, that very strong sense of, like purely bad, or do we feel like he's a mixed character and he has some good qualities also?
I think he's mainly just plain greedy. I don't know if
Yeah.
he's quite exactly evil, but greedy and and not very warm person. But to be basically, I've known some people I've thought may were completely evil, but not him. He's just not good, but he's not evil.
Yeah. I mean, he's for one thing, he doesn't change at the end, in spite of allowing Henry and Catherine to get married. Eleanor still can't get married until her lover suddenly comes into wealth. Then she's finally allowed to marry him. So it's not like the general suddenly saw the light and became a generous father. But yeah, he's greedy, but I don't think he's evil.
Yeah. I think the the part that makes me think of that evilness is his, sending Catherine away, that, the this the potential of for harm. Like,
Mhm.
I think he has no ability to have empathy for other people.
Mhm.
So yeah, maybe that's the part that makes me feel like, he's zero empathy, and maybe kind of like a sociopath, where he can
Yeah.
act nice, and manipulate, but not have empathy, not be, in the movie, the term that they use is a vampire. Henry says he was a
Yeah.
vampire,
Vampiric.
which
Yeah.
is,
I think sociopath sounds about right.
I think Elsie makes a good point when she talks about the economic conditions. If the general wanted to keep his abbey, he was going to have more money to put into it.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's why I can't say the general is evil, because he's trying to do what everybody in that time period had to do to keep their land and their property in the family. He just didn't have any qualms about being manipulative as a way to do it.
He was embarrassed about what happened to him, how he was deceived. And
Right,
that's why he would not explain to Catherine why he was sending her away.
right.
Yes, and also now I've lost my train of thought again. I'm getting really worried. What is that? Ginkgo Balboa or something? Bilboa, I should be taking. Hmm. Who was that lady that was advising him in the first BBC production? Do you remember who I'm talking about? She was dressed and made up very strongly and weirdly, and she looked like she was evil. And was she a mistress? Was she just a person who advised him socially about who had money and who didn't? Does anybody remember her?
I don't think I've seen that version.
that version is so strange. It it feels like Frederick Fellini meets Northanger Abbey. Um, yeah, that I think, he talks about having rich friends that he was going to meet in Bath, and so I was kind of wondering if like that was supposed to be, one of his rich friends that I don't know.
But don't you love the images of people using the bath as a healing thing? They were walking around and they had these little floating trays with healing flowers or something on them.
Oh,
That was in the old one, right? The 87 version?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that was really neat to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Elsie had a good comment. I think the question of like Isabella in the movie versus Isabella in the book, whether she is a fallen woman or not in the book, and it seems like Austen does not imply that she and Captain Tilney had a sexual relationship. It does say that, show that in the 2007 movie, but yeah.
yeah, the book is much more vague and basically just implies that she was flirting with him a lot. And then when he decided he wasn't interested in her anymore, then she tried to get James back.
Yeah,
Melody's microphone is off. You're muted.
Sorry.
I saw you talking.
That's what I was going to say. If the general had these two sons, they're going to carry on the name. One of them is a profligate who's, if he does marry somebody, it'll be probably an unhappy marriage, may not even result in children. And it seems to me like Henry's his best bet for keeping the line going, and then to disassociate himself from that son. seems very foolish.
Well, except that the older son, Captain Tilney, is he's the one that's going to inherit everything unless he dies. So, I mean, I thought it would just be that he would have a marriage of convenience with, he'd marry someone for money, which seemed to be what the general had done.
I noticed that Elsie had written about the preventing of child marriage or young people marrying. And I read a book about Jane Austen, and it said that she had seen so many relatives and so on die in early childbirth. And as her novels are, as they progress, and you get to uh, Persuasion, where the woman is a lot older, that was more, she thought if women waited till they were a little older to have children, that it might be better than these young women, and that she really was kind of against child marriage from the experience of her relations that had died.
Yeah. Her brother, Edward's wife, who died, I think it was like her 10th or 11th kid that she
11th. Yeah.
died after. It's just like crazy that it was so many children in such a short period of time. And yeah, and in Jane's letter, she talks about, like them being animals that, like, just sort of breeding animals that, like, they have no power. I think for Jane, it was, maybe like a thing of like, once you're married, you can't control whether you have children or not. And so, and so there was sort of the religious dimension of, that you're supposed to welcome children. But then I think she also had a acute awareness of how dangerous it was to have multiple pregnancies so quickly after each other.
Just back to back to back. I mean, Edward's wife was just pregnant from the honeymoon until she died. She was, pregnant or breastfeeding, pregnant, breastfeeding.
I don't think they breastfed. So I think that's
well, yeah,
they had so
farmed them out to the nursemaids.
Little time in between pregnancies.
Yeah.
Because at least sometimes when you breastfeed, you don't get pregnant right away. Any other thoughts? Any other questions? I think it's kind of interesting to think about, like, where it stands on your list. And I know for a lot of people, it's rarely a favorite. But, and like people could say, well, it's 6th on my list, but I love them all. So kind of curious where
Northanger Abbey is tied for first place with Persuasion.
Oh,
those are my 2 favorites. Oh, yeah.
I was going to say that it's above Mansfield Park for sure. But I will also say, when I just reread it, it is less ponderous. I mean, we all love all of Jane Austen's and we really like to go through them, but this one just goes through and you can read it, and it's like it's a fast read and kind of fun to read over.
Mm-hmm. It's light.
I had
I sent
seen
it
the
my granddaughter last year because she was 16, and I thought,
Almost done.
your season of life. And then I sent it to my other granddaughter who's 15 this year, but I haven't even heard she got it. You know, you don't really hear from the people as much as you'd like.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I read it after I watched the Devaney Lucer talk on it for the great courses that she taught. If people have Canopy, I really recommend that video because she's really telling us all the different things that Austen is trying to do in the book. And so I think like there's a lot going on that, if you don't know the history of the novel, we might, as naive readers, might not have quite as much of the understanding. But then if you see that, but yeah, so that series, the Life and Works of Jane Austen through Great Courses, is available through Canopy, which you can get a lot. Most people have access to it through their public library.
Is it I don't know what Canopy is.
So it's a streaming service.
Oh.
So they have a lot of like documentaries and old movies and novel and like you can get Shakespeare productions.
Oh, cool.
And so I have it through my public library. I think most Washington libraries have it as if you go to your public library website and then just look up Canopy with a K. So for me, I signed up. I had to sign up through my library using my library number, and then you create an account. And like for mine, you get like 20 tickets a month. And the Great Courses series, it's 5 tickets for like 7 days. So, depending on how many you want to watch in 1 week. But yeah, Canopy is really
Great.
wonderful. Like sometimes you're trying to find an old movie or a documentary. They do have the 2007 Northanger Abbey. I think they also have Clueless and Becoming Jane.
Oh.
So
I got Northanger Abbey through Canopy, but then Suzanne said, "Isn't it on YouTube?" And so I went in my family room. Yes, it was on YouTube. So I got to sit on my comfortable couch and watch it on my TV instead of in a secretary chair watching it on my computer.
You can project your Canopy to your TV too. You can download the app to your TV and watch it on
I don't
TV.
know how to do that.
Yeah, you just get the app, and there's an app store on your TV, and you just download it.
Oh, okay.
See a big screen.
I just know I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube with history things and Jane Austen things, interviews and talks.
Well, you'll have to make sure you get YouTube on your TV also.
YouTube is on my TV. That's
Oh,
where
it
I
is
watch
on
it.
your. Okay. Okay.
Yep, that's where I watch it.
Okay.
We haven't talked about Mrs. Allen.
Oh,
Excuse me.
Mrs. Allen,
it's Alan.
what do you think about her?
I love her.
That's her
Well,
fashion.
She's pretty naive too.
Very shallow, but she's pleasant enough, I guess. Close.
So I love in the 2007 movie, the person who plays Mrs. Allen was Fanny Price in the BBC, I think it was 83
Yeah,
Mansfield
the
Park.
early one.
Sylvestra La Tournelle, maybe, or something. I can't remember her exact name. But so so that's one of those ones where like you're like, it's Fanny grown up becomes Mrs. Allen.
I think she's harmless, kind of. I mean, they do let Catherine have an awful lot of freedom. They don't really, she and Mr. Allen don't really vet her relationships very well for her as far as guardians go. They just kind of give her free rein. Um, but I mean, she's sweet, and she takes Catherine out shopping for new clothes, and
I think she has to be kind of a hands-off guardian in the sense of the, like Catherine has to be the one making the moral choices. And she is clearly someone who doesn't understand social nuances any better than Catherine does at the beginning.
no.
Yeah.
Mr. Allen has a little more common sense, but he didn't appear to be around to be consulted.
Right. He absented himself at the ball pretty quickly. I'm going to the card room.
Yes.
He does check to make sure Henry Tilney's okay to dance with, so that was good.
This is going off, but somebody earlier said about Jane Austen's ability to write these bad men like Willoughby and Wickham and General and Thorpe and stuff. And you kind of wonder if she hadn't run into a few people like that.
Yeah, I think when you read her letters, I think she just loved to observe people. And she was kind of judgy.
Yeah.
So I'm sure she probably ran into Thorpe's, that's for sure.
And Mr. Collins.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was a running joke once they moved to Chawton that I think like her mother was trying to get her to marry the clergyman there who I think was older. But I also wonder if, he was similar to Mr. Collins in verbosity. Any other parting thoughts?
Interesting. I'm looking forward to the fall when we talk about persuasion.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was so I was thinking for persuasion, would people just like just a general kind of book discussion instead of kind of like what we did with this one, instead of focusing on a specific theme, just being able to talk about whatever with the book and the adaptations. I know.
I like having your questions for us to think about in advance.
Yes, I'll still do questions, but I think at one point we did Jane Austen and the Navy as a meeting. And that was kind of interesting, but I think we'll just do another sort of.
Yeah, I think an overall general discussion where we can hit on all different viewpoints
Okay. And we'll make sure to have it not during the AGM since several people who are lucky and going.
Yes.
Yeah. It just looks like it's just going to be a great lineup of speakers and everything. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming, and thanks for all your comments in the chat and your discussion. And we'll post this if anybody wants to watch it again. And hope that everybody has good weather and no wildfire smoke. So that's my wish for everyone.
Thank you, Michelle, for putting all this together.
Yes, thank you.
you.
It was super. Really
I'm gonna-
enjoyed it. Thank you.